History is filled with people who died for what they believed. That's not rare. What is rare is people dying for something they knew was false. That distinction matters more than most people realize. Because belief can be inherited, belief can be manipulated, belief can be sincere and still be wrong. But knowledge is different, and the men who followed Jesus Christ didn't die for a belief they were handed. They died for a claim they said they saw. That changes everything. The apostles were not raised expecting resurrection. That part gets overlooked. First-century Jews believed in resurrection at the end of time, a distant, collective event where all the dead would rise together. They did not believe in one man rising in the middle of history while everyone else stayed in their graves. There was no theological category for that. So when Jesus was executed, publicly, brutally, and successfully, their expectations collapsed. This wasn't a setback. This was the end. Rome crucified people to erase movements, and it worked. Messianic movements always ended the same way. Leader dead, followers scattered, story forgotten. And that's exactly what happened at first. The disciples ran. Peter denied knowing Jesus 3 times. To a servant girl, not a soldier, not an executioner, a girl. That's not courage, that's fear. And fear tells us something important. These men were not fanatics looking to die. They were not suicidal zealots. They wanted to live. Which is why what happened next is so difficult to explain. Within weeks, not decades, not generations, these same men were standing in the open streets of Jerusalem, the very city where Jesus had been executed, publicly declaring that he was alive. Not symbolically alive, not spiritually alive, physically alive. And they knew exactly what that claim would cost them. This wasn't a private belief whispered in safe spaces. This was a public accusation against Rome and a theological threat to the religious authorities. They were warned, they were beaten, they were imprisoned, and every time the same offer stood before them. Stop talking, that's all. No execution required, no torture necessary, just silence. And that's the part most people miss. They could walk away at any moment. There was no vow of secrecy binding them, no blood oath, no cult leader threatening punishment. If this was a lie, if the resurrection was invented, the pressure would have fractured them immediately. Conspiracies always do. Someone always cracks, especially when cracking means survival. But none of them did. Not when James was executed. Not when Peter was arrested again. Not when Paul, an enemy-turned witness, joined them and suffered alongside them. Each of them faced death individually. Not as a group, not together, one by one, separated, which means each man faced a solitary decision. Is this worth dying for? And more importantly, is this true? People will die for lies they believe. History proves that. But no one dies for a lie they invented when they can save themselves by admitting it. Especially not repeatedly. Especially not under torture. Especially not with nothing to gain. The apostles gained no power, no wealth, no protection. They didn't take over governments. They didn't live in palaces. They lived hunted lives, and they died brutal deaths. Peter, according to early sources, was crucified upside down. James was beheaded. Thomas was speared. Andrew was bound to a cross. Paul was executed. And before anyone says, well, those are church traditions, remember this. The early church did not glorify martyrdom the way later centuries did. These accounts were recorded matter-of-factly, not as legends, as losses. Here's the question that refuses to go away. What did they see? Because something transformed cowards into witnesses. Something turned silence into proclamation. Something made men choose death when recanting would have let them live quietly. And the explanation can't be power, or money, or manipulation. The simplest answer is also the most uncomfortable one. They were telling the truth. They believed they had encountered a risen man, not in a vision, not in a dream, but in shared, physical reality. They ate with him. They touched him. They recognized his voice. And once you've seen something like that, you don't unsee it, even when it costs everything. Christianity did not begin with theology. It began with testimony. We saw him. And history has been trying to explain that sentence ever since. You can dismiss it. You can argue with it. You can ignore it. But you can't easily explain why men died for something they could have denied, especially when denial meant freedom. And maybe that's why this question still unsettles people. Because if the apostles were telling the truth, then the resurrection isn't a metaphor. It's an event. And if it's an event, then Jesus isn't just a teacher. He's something else entirely. History doesn't demand blind faith. It demands an explanation. And the apostles left us with one question that still stands. What explains what happened next?